So I'm a pretty big fan of the graphics and visuals of Starfield, but with this being a Bethesda game, we can use mods to massively increase the graphical quality of the game. So in this video, I want to go over all the graphic and visual mods I'm currently using that you can also use to massively increase the looks and visuals of Starfield. Now keep in mind when going over a lot of these mods, these are graphical mods. A lot of these are going to be increasing the resolution and quality of a lot of the assets throughout the game. So that means if you have a lower tier PC or you're already getting bad performance, these could potentially make your performance worse. Now a really good place to start is one of the mods that's not going to affect your performance whatsoever, but I think is going to make the game look much better. And this is going to be the LUTs mods. And the one I'm currently using is neutral LUTs. Now essentially what this mod is doing is removing a lot of the color filters that are present within Starfield to give the game a much more natural and color accurate look. That's the main goal of this mod. It's not to change the visuals of the game, but it's to remove these kind of filters that are present within Starfield. And you can very easily see the difference in some of these screenshots where before you use this mod, there's almost this green-blue color filter over a lot of the game, but once you install this, it removes that and it makes all the colors and all the visuals much more clear and much more color accurate. And like mentioned, I'm using neutral LUTs because it doesn't change up a lot of the colors or a lot of visuals. It's primarily there just to take off those color filters to make it look more color accurate, but there are a lot of other different LUTs that will change up the look of the game in a bunch of different ways. And I'll also link in the description a Reddit post that made an incredibly useful tool that will allow you to very easily get a comparison between all the different LUTs mods in different parts of the game. So you can compare it in New Atlantis day or night, at the lodge, you can compare it in Aquila City in the day or the night, and a bunch of other options where you'll be able to go through and change through all the different LUTs mods and see exactly what they're changing. So I would very much recommend going to this Reddit post, checking a bunch of these different options and seeing what LUTs mod you actually want to use and get that one, because this one will have a pretty big impact on the overall visuals of the game. Now that brings us to the meat and potatoes of the graphic mods I'm currently using, which is Starfield High Definition Texture Pack. Now the goal of this mod is basically to upgrade all the different assets and visuals of Starfield up to 4K. So it'll massively increase the quality and the fidelity of everything in Starfield. Now this mod is not completed yet, so you won't be able to get absolutely everything up to that quality, but there is a ton of stuff you can download to get much higher quality 4K assets and visuals. Now this isn't one file you're going to go download and get everything. This is split into a ton of different files, and there's actually a pretty good reason for this. And that's because upping everything up to 4K would obviously require a lot higher usage from your PC. And specifically downloading a bunch of different pieces of this mod will massively increase the VRAM usage of your GPU. And if you're somebody that has a GPU with lower VRAM, you're going to have to pick and choose. I personally have a 6950 XT, which is a higher end GPU, but because of how much VRAM these higher textures can start to use, I also have to pick and choose. I can't use every different piece of this mod at the same time. It'll just start using too much VRAM. And also these different files that you're picking and choosing between can have really big file sizes. For instance, the biggest file size is called Rocks and Soils, and this is updating a lot of the kind of base foundation of the game, so the actual landscape or environment, and this is almost at a 17 gig download. 4K files, 4K textures are massive in file size, so keep that in mind as well. So you're probably gonna have to pick and choose what you actually want to update through this mod, because there is a ton of stuff. There's landscape, floor, and more. There's cliffs and caves. There's decal upgrades. There's architecture upgrades. There's weapon upgrades, ship upgrades. A large portion of the textures in the game you are able to update and upgrade with this mod, but again, everything isn't done. And in the description of this mod, they also show everything that's been completed so far and all the stuff they're still working on. Now, a few of the different downloads I would recommend from this mod is getting actors, is getting ships, probably getting one of the foundational versions. Like Rocks and Soils will be really good, especially if you're running around and exploring on planets. But again, that's one of the biggest files, so it's also going to have one of the biggest performance impacts. And then one of the main ones I would recommend is weapons. It does have a pretty big file size, almost 7 gigs, but weapons was one of the things that I noticed the most. You're obviously going to be using weapons a ton, and you can very quickly see the upgrade upgrade in quality and fidelity of the weapons once you download this. And a lot of the weapons look so much better with these higher resolution textures, and it's very easy to see, and it's just something you're going to be looking at for a lot of the gameplay. And next up, we have a pack of graphical mods that you can either download as a full pack, or you can just choose which different mods you want to download. And these are all from the same mod developer, and these are all smaller graphical updates to smaller pieces of the game, but I think they make a pretty big difference. So everything that's included in this pack is high-res eyes and eyebrows, high-res graffiti, high-res hair and beards, high-res NPCs specifically for Sarah Morgan, and high-res ship interiors. Now, personally, out of this pack, I'm using high-res eyes and eyebrows, high-res hair and beards, and high-res NPCs for Sarah Morgan because that's a main NPC I'm using. Those are the three I'm currently using, and I can actually tell a pretty big difference, especially when downloading hair and beards and Sarah Morgan, especially since Sarah Morgan is the main companion I'm using. I could very easily see a massive upgrade in what these mods are actually targeting. So I would definitely recommend those three, but you can download the others if you want as well. Now, I think high-res ship interiors may already be covered if you downloaded the ships section from the high definition texture mod we went over previously, but again, not 100% sure if they're going to cover the exact same things. And if you're trying to download minimal mods, I would definitely recommend at least hair and beards from this pack. I could very quickly tell the difference between the hair and beards, which I think are one of the weaker portions of Starfield's graphics in the vanilla version. And then finally, we have two additional mods from the same mod developer with Stellar Glass and Stellar Water. And both of these look really good, but like I mentioned with the high definition texture pack, I don't know if there are pieces in sections of that mod that also touch glass or water. I'm not 100% sure. I would assume in one of those that they probably would touch water. But what's nice about these two mods is that they're very specific and they're much smaller mods because they're focusing two specific things. So even if there are parts of the high definition texture mod that touch glass and water, you may not want to download those because they're packed in with a bunch of other stuff. And instead you could go get these two mods that are going to be much smaller overall. And both of these also look really good. Water is probably the lowest quality of any of the graphics or visuals in Starfield. It's just because you don't really do much in water, but looks much better with Stellar Water. And Stellar Glass was honestly something I didn't think would have such a big impact, but it also makes glass much more clear. And especially when you're adventuring through all the different dungeons in the game or all the different interiors, there's a bunch of the cabinets and stuff that are glass that you open up or some you don't open up. And once you see a comparison, you see kind of how smudged or low detail the glass was, the objects behind the glass was compared to when you actually get the mod. So it's much more clear. The glass looks like it was actually cleaned so you can see everything inside of it. It just ends up looking really good, and you actually end up looking through glass quite a lot in Starfield, a lot more than you would originally think. So even though these are kind of small mods, they have a pretty big impact in my opinion. But that's all the different graphical mods I'm currently using, and even though, like I mentioned, I really like the look of Starfield, I like to look at the graphics and the visuals, downloading these mods makes a massive difference. So I'd recommend going through, choosing all the different mods that you think are going to have the biggest impact on how you play Starfield, download them and see how the game runs when you download them and how you like the looks. Even though these are just graphical updates, I think they just make the game better. And there's still a ton of other mods you could go look into for yourself, like reshades that I'm currently not using can have a pretty big impact, especially some of the better ones. You can go get different mods to specifically update certain companions if you want. So there are still other options out there, but these are the graphical mods I'm currently using, and I think they make Starfield look incredible. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.